and this is what I do. And you know, you justify it with things like, well, it's giving me time to spend with my child. You know, I can work 3 nights a week and be with my daughter, which is true. At a cost.
So you graduated from college.
I did.
And
moved
went
to
back
Chicago
and went back into it.
It started to get, I started to make a ridiculous amount of money, and I lost track of what I was going to do. Like, what are you doing? What's your goal? I didn't have any goals because college was over. And so that started to mess with me a little bit. So I ended up getting back with an ex from home, and he said, you know, let's get married. Let's get married. Because if you get married, you don't have to live like this anymore. And so, again, I was trying to get myself out of it, you know, trying to look for an exit strategy. And I say all that to say, because at the end of the day, the only thing that could really get me out of it was Jesus Christ. So I got married. That turned into an abusive disaster. I was gone within 2 months, back home. And now I have a lawyer. I got to pay for an attorney. So what am I going to do? I'm going to go back to work. So I go back to work. I end up working in a club in Detroit, Michigan. And there's a girl there, and she sits down, she works there too, and she sits down and says, hey, have you ever worked out in Vegas? Las Vegas. There's a lot of money out in Las Vegas. So I said, no, and she said, well, I have an apartment there and a house here, you should come with me. And I'll show you the clubs and stuff like that. And within a couple weeks, we were on an airplane flying out to Vegas, and when we got there, she explained to me that she was a prostitute. So up until this point, that was another thing that I did. You know, I'll do this, but I won't do that. And that's a way. It's called othering. It's a psychological term. It's called othering. And what you're doing is you're drawing these fake boundaries to justify and make yourself feel safer and better at the fact. And it's a coping mechanism. And so, you know, I would never do that. Was my claim to fame on that. I'd never do that. It's what I said when the girls asked me if I would ever dance. So. She's making $1,000 in an hour, and I'm making $1,000 in 8 hours. Maybe maybe that's not so bad.
Kind of weighing your options.
And how quickly can we get this Vegas trip done so I can go pay my attorney and get out of here? I at this point had been in the industry for 6 years. I was sitting there just tired. Like, there's got to be more to life than this. You know, I'm in my late 20s now. What am I doing? I started this at 19. What am I doing? And so. That's how I got into prostitution. I would go with her because it made more sense. And I literally could only do that twice. And then I was like, I've completely bottomed out at this point. What if my daughter ever finds out? What if I get arrested for this? It's on my record. All these rational thoughts that I really wasn't having up until this point start happening. And I'm like, I need to know if, as bad as I am, I need to know if I could be that good, was a thought that I was having.
Interesting.
Wasn't it?
Interesting. Because I was going to ask you, like, what are you thinking? What are you feeling during this time, right? You're doing this, now you're transitioning over to Las Vegas, and just like, what's going on in your psyche, right? Yeah,
I felt like I had completely lost my grip. And I was looking, you know, I was at the beginning of me working in the industry, I was very angry and I would fight a lot. And there was all this fight because I was trying to fight my way through it. But at the end, I was just kind of like coasting through because I was exhausted and my whole life had train wrecked pretty much overnight. And I could credit it back to that decision that I made to ever get in. That one decision I made at 19, you know, I was still paying for it at 25, 26 years old, and I had had abortions. I mean, this had taken a toll on my body. This had taken a toll on my life. You know, I didn't have, it was hard for me to have relationships, especially with men. You know, so I get on the plane, I go back to Michigan, and I decide that I'm gonna do something else with my life. I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I'm gonna figure something out. Maybe I'll go back and get my master's, I don't know. And within about a month or two, I am pregnant again. And so I go to have an abortion because that's what I know to do. You know, you get in fear and you're in this life, you murder
It's another exit strategy, right?
It's my exit strategy. I'm writing my book right now, and I was like, the whole thing is like, I should call it exit strategy.
I think it's a great title.
I think it needs to be the
exit
title.
strategies that don't work.
That do not work for dummies. So I go to set up the appointment, and I'm really convicted. I don't know what conviction is though, because remember, I'm an atheist, right? So I'm having this internal battle and I don't understand where it's coming from, but I can't sleep. So I prayed. I cannot tell you why I prayed. I think it was like a last ditch effort. I was exhausted and I really just wanted to sleep. And what I said was, I said, God, I don't know if you're real because you don't look real. And I don't know if you can hear me because I'm all jacked up. But if you're real and you can hear me, I don't think you want me to have this abortion. But I'm not going to stop it. You have to stop it. And I fell asleep. I had to make 5 different appointments to have this abortion, and they all, through circumstance, got canceled. So I would leave 2 hours early, and I would get stuck in 3.5 hours worth of traffic. I had the money in my purse. I counted it, gave it to the lady. She counts it. She's like, "You're $100 short." Can't be. It was just in my purse. I go home, got to cancel and reschedule. I go home. The $100 is sitting on my mat. Like, all of this supernatural stuff started to happen, and when it finally clicked, my aha moment, I'm like, God is real.
It's what I prayed.
This is happening.
Yeah.
He just answered, which means he's real and he can hear me. So I'm not so far disgusting to him like most people had told me that I was. You know, you're going to hell. I'm in hell. I'm already there. You don't need to tell me where I am. So that was why I think a lot of the big turnoff to just say, oh, I'm an atheist.
Yeah,
you know, is because there was such a shunning especially from Christians.
Yes.
And
that isn't how Jesus would do it.
No. That's actually the opposite of how he does it still. And I get to watch him do it.
Yeah.
So I spent my 9 months of pregnancy, it was like 7 months at that point, saying, God, who are you? Are you Buddha? Are you Allah? Are you the universe? Who are you? You're not Jesus. I was convinced he wasn't Jesus because of the Christians. And this God just kind of showed up in this crazy way. And if he's really mad at me and he hates me, he wouldn't have shown up. So I can't put it all together. A month after I have my son, I'm talking to my sister on the phone about nothing to do with Jesus. Nothing.
And she's a believer?
She is a believer.
She's a believer.
And she was praying for me, I'll tell you what.
That's so awesome.
I know.
Yeah.
She's my older sister. So I'm on the phone with her, probably talking about food. I don't know what I'm talking about. And I have this thought in my head, and it's really loud. Like, when you get a song stuck in your head, and it kind of gets annoying sometimes. It was like that, but it was Matthew 4:16, and it was over and over, and it was loud. It was a loud thought. I wasn't hearing voices, but it was this loud thought. Matthew 4:16, Matthew 4:16, and I finally just asked her. I said, "Who is Matthew, and what is 4:16?" She goes, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "This is what's stuck in my head. I have this thought in my head. It's stuck in my head." And she said, "Well, that sounds like a Bible verse." And I was like, "Yeah, I doubt it. But okay, I'll play your little Christian game. Go read your little book." And she opened it up, and it said, "Those that have sat in darkness have seen a great light." And I said, "I have no idea what that means." And I got off the phone with her and went about my day. 24 hours later, probably to the hour, I was sitting in my car. I was getting ready to go home. I was at a girlfriend's house. I put on my seatbelt, and in a minute I went, I get it. And I was almost embarrassed because I was by myself. I had my kids with me, but I was by myself, and I'm like, who am I talking to? What am I talking about? What just happened? But I instantly knew in a moment that Jesus was the only way to get to God. I knew that heaven was real. I knew that hell was real. I knew that I was forgiven. I knew, I saw, I got it. And the first thing the Lord spoke to me was, don't let people tell you who I am, let me show you who I am.
Nice.
Which is the difference between a religion and a relationship, which I didn't even have a grid for either one. So I'm just like, you're real.
Yeah.
He's
and it's interesting because the whole time that we were talking, this is the first time you said, and the Lord said, right? And it's interesting because even Abraham had to come to a place after knowing God in different ways.
Yes.
He had to finally come to know him as the Lord, right? That the one who is intimate, that has relationship with us.
The one that can take over and fix the whole thing.
Yes, yeah.
So I spent the next 3 years of my life at a church, just on the floor pretty much. And the Lord, Jesus was digging out my belly. He was changing my mind. He was showing me what real love looked like. He was, delivering me from all the hurts and the wounds and the stuff from just life, what life had done.
Yeah.
And
But, so I want to stop there for a second,
Okay.
because people might be saying, what do you mean you're at a church and you were on your knees and you were on the floor, and you know, and I guess I just want to say that, you know, part of relationship is surrender.
Yeah.
There's a yielding, right? Like you had this this epiphany, right? This where you felt like he really revealed to you what what the scripture in Matthew meant, right, for your own life. That even in all the darkness, that God ministered a light to you, and that was himself, right? And he was drawing you to himself. And so then after, what he does is that he just sort of loves this junk out of us. Yep. He just loves it all out, but we have to be willing to let him do that. Because, you know, sometimes you can go up and you can hug somebody and you can feel like they don't want to let you in, but you were letting him in. You said, you know what, okay, I don't know how, you know, what you're going to do, God, but I'm willing to be surrendered, to be yielded, and to let you come in and do all this.
Well, it was at a place where I didn't have anything to lose.
Yeah.
And I'd found the thing that I had really been looking for the whole time.
Yes.
Because I had finally it was the most satisfying feeling I've ever felt in my entire life. I was empty, and now I'm not empty.
Yes.
You know, I don't have a meaning, and now I found meaning. It wasn't the sex, it wasn't the money, it wasn't any of this stuff. It had nothing to do with all this superficial stuff.
Yeah.
I found the thing I've been looking for.
Yeah.
And my other thought was, if this book has the capacity to do that, I need to know what else the book says.
Right.
So I got a hold of a Bible. I mean, as soon as I could get a hold of a Bible, I got a hold of a Bible, and was like, I need to know what this is, because this word is living.
Yes.
This is alive. This word has the capacity that when he breathes on it, when God speaks over it, and it happens. It happened.
Right.
You know,
it's alive.
So it's alive, and it has the capacity to change everything.
Yeah. And I just want to clarify one more thing, Annie, because I know you're going to take us into the rest of this story now. And Annie actually has a ministry called Eve's Angels, and she's going to talk about that now, how God has so touched her life. She is now touching other people's lives. But I just want to clarify something, because, you know, sometimes people will say, oh, you know, you were going through something and you found religion, right? But that's not what this is. It is God passionately pursues us.
Yes.
And and hopefully in those moments of our life when we're going through difficult things, that's when we recognize we're being pursued.
That's right.
Because sometimes everything else around us is so loud, there's so much going on, that we don't even recognize. You know, it just makes me think about when I was in school. You know, I went to a reunion 20 years later, and some guy's like, yeah, you know, I really liked you when you were, you know, and I had a crush on you. I mean, I was oblivious to it. I didn't even know, because there were other things that were drawing my attention, right? And it was probably a good thing anyway. But my point is that, you know, God pursues us passionately, but sometimes things around us are drawing our attention. But it's sometimes not until we have, like where you said this was like I had reached the bottom. I mean, that was it. I did this twice.
But I wasn't looking for God.
Yes,
I was just looking for another way out. You know what I mean? I wasn't like, oh, maybe I'll try religion. It wasn't.
Yes.
I was like, I'm an atheist, so I don't.
But he was looking for you.
But he was chasing me down the whole time.
Yes.
And when the book comes out, you'll see I shouldn't even have been alive at this point, because the situations, and we could be here all day, but just the different circumstances, you know, that were surrounding my life, I shouldn't even be here. You know, and people say, wow, aren't you just so in awe of what God has done in your ministry? I'm like, I'm in awe of what he's done with me. I'm still freaking out that I'm saved. I don't think anybody understands, like, I'm not going to hell. Like, I know him. You know what I mean?
I like that.
So it fuels actually what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
Because I know what happens when they get it. I know what it feels like to not get it, and then I know what it feels like to get it.
Yeah. So what happens now? You know, you're at church and God is doing all this
God's
work
doing
in
all
your
this
life.
stuff. The pastors are really recognizing, like, wow, you're really called into ministry, but nobody knows my story because it's shameful, right? So we're just not going to tell anybody, because now I look all cleaned up. And I'm this good Christian girl that sits in the front row all the time. And they're like, wow, she really loves Jesus. I'm like, you people have no idea how much I do. So I turned 30, and I was serving in the church underneath the leadership. And I was like, God, I know you've called me into ministry, but what does that look like? Because I don't look like them, and they don't know my story, and how are we going to do all of this? And so I fasted for my birthday, my 30th birthday. I'm like, Jesus started ministry when he was 30. So the Lord answered me, and I didn't like the answer at first, but he said, you're going to go back to those places that I got you out of, and you're going to go tell my daughters that I love them. And I thought, that is not anything close
to what I
want to do. I'll write you a check and send it to the church. Can't I just have some normal? No. So because my thought process was, he saved me from something for something. And that's like, if there's anybody watching this that's looking for purpose, because I meet women all the time that are like, how did you find your purpose? Look at where he saved you from something, because he saved all of us from stuff.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be this grandiose, production, but he saved us all from something. It's for a reason.
Yes.
There is a reason.
Yes.
And so that's the way that I prayed it, and he showed it to me, and I first was like, that's definitely not what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna pretend I didn't hear that. That lasted for 2 hours. And then I had to just get over myself, because I was like, I don't want to go tell everybody this. I'm all cleaned up now. I don't want to tell people that I used to be a dancer and a prostitute. I don't want to go air my dirty laundry.
Sure.
And the Lord spoke to me real clear and was like, that's pride, because you think it's about you. And it's not about you, it's about me. But then, and it wasn't condemning, it was just like, you need your mind adjusted here.
Yeah.
So as I got adjusted, what was real clear was, this really does glorify the Lord. This really shows you can be in the gutter.
That's right.
And there is nothing too far.
That's right.
You have never gone. There's nothing you can do that can separate you from the love of God. And so I see, I work with women now, obviously in the industry, and I see some of their stories, and I'm just like, and my ministry team will be like, I don't know about this one. And I'm like, oh, that's going to be the one, watch. It's almost like the worse it is, because then I can't take credit for it.
Right.
The ministry team can't take credit for it. No church we partner with, no amount of money can do what's about to happen.
That's right.
When the love of Jesus Christ hits this woman and it gets revealed, Jesus gets revealed to her. So that I started Eve's Angels. I got asked to leave my church because they believed that we didn't have any business going into places like that. But that's where Jesus was telling me to go. So I got the left foot of fellowship and got kicked out. Went through a journey, trying to research how I was going to do it. Just God show me. And I was at a church, and the pastor had heard about, me going into the clubs, and said, hey, would you do that here? Would you? And I was like, you want me to? So it started in Grand Rapids, Michigan 2.5 years ago. We just started a small Bible study. I felt completely unprepared. I had no idea what I was doing. We started a Bible study or a support group for the girls, and then I would train up the church people to go in, because it's not just like, oh, let's just go in. No, you got to get prepared. You have to pray right, and you got to know what to expect, and because it's kind of shocking, it's not for everybody.
Right.
So I got Grand Rapids together, and we have a solid team in Grand Rapids. It's been running for 2.5 years, and then a couple months after that happened, the Lord spoke to me and said, I want you to go do it again in Lansing. And that was one of the cities that I worked at. So I got to go minister in the club that I used to work at, and see some of the girls I used to work with that are still there. And then the Lord said, I want you to go do it again in Detroit. And I was like, oh no, I definitely don't want to do that. It's Detroit. And now my senior pastor is there, so that connection happened. And the assistant pastor, who's my brother and just like a peer mentor, and he's also on my board, he's there. And so we set it up, and we did it again in Detroit. And then the Lord said, go do it again in Chicago. So we've set up and done it again in Chicago. And then the Lord said, go to Dallas, Texas. So we set up, the support group and the outreach in Dallas. And then our original goal was to get a house and a rehabilitation center for the girls, because when they come out, they need somewhere to go. There has to be something. I had a place. I had my family's house. The door was always open for me there. I had a place to go and figure out, okay, who am I? I was never created to sell sex. No woman was created. Nobody was created to sell sex. So who am I? And we are in the process right now of fundraising and getting it all together, so we can have a facility where they can we can figure out who they were created to be. If they're a chef, let's put them through culinary school. You know, whatever they were created to do. We're housing some girls in Grand Rapids now, and we're running 5 cities.
That's yeah. I'm listening to this, and I'm like, I'm so excited, and I'm so amazed, and I can't imagine that any pastor would be kicking you out of a church. So I'm glad that there are other pastors that recognize the value of this. And I see your angel earrings. You got some wings on them.
I always get gifts with wings on them.
Yeah,
People always send me
I
jewelry.
love that. I love that. Wow. So what a story. And so talk about some of, and I know we don't want to put names on any of these women, but talk about some of what you have seen God do through this ministry.
My favorite testimony, and I get that question a lot, can you give us an example, like how this has worked? And my favorite testimony that I have right now are 2 of my favorite girls in the world other than my daughter. And they actually are my daughters to me, and they call me mom, and we have this relationship because they never had a mom. You know, they had a mom that was allowing them to be handled by men for drugs when they were children. And so, you know, that started early for them as well. And so I was on outreach one day, and I went into the club, and a girl that I used to work with was there. And when she saw me, she knows what I do now. She was dragging this young-looking girl behind her. And this girl had piercings all over and tattoos and 14 different colors in her hair, and she had a contact in one of her eyes, so she had 2 different color eyes. Like, I was like, what are you bringing me? And the girl told her, she said, sit down and talk to her, talking about me. So I sat down and I was like, what's going on? And she's like, well, you know, I have lupus and I don't believe in God, but she said, you know, you wouldn't judge me if I came over here. And I had instantly had a heart for this girl. I mean, I was just like, I want to take her home and give her whatever she needs. And so she started coming to our Bible studies. You know, I sat and talked to her maybe a half hour, just talked to her, just listened about her life, you know, some of the stuff. She told me that her sister was living with her 16-year-old sister that was a drug addict, and how she was trying to get her to stop prostituting for drugs. So, you know, do you think could she come to the Bible study too? So these 2 girls started coming to Bible study. One of the younger sister that's on drugs is doing cocaine in the bathroom while I'm preaching. Do you understand? And I know it. And so I'm thinking, okay, God, how do I handle this? And God's like, rejoice, she's here.